Hey, everybody. This episode is brought to you by our proud title sponsor, NHL Sense Arena, the next generation of off-ice hockey training for players and goalies. Look, we know how much you invest in your children's hockey development, the early mornings, the travel, and let's not forget the expenses of training for hockey camps, private ice time, the general expenses of the season. It's a lot. But wouldn't it be great to bring that on-ice practice experience home that's fun, fits into your schedule, and that's affordable? If you said yes, which I'm sure you did, you've got to check out NHL Sense Arena. It's a top-tier virtual reality training game that brings the on-ice practice experience home so you can practice anytime and anywhere, literally. You can transform any part of your home into a virtual ice rink where you're getting unlimited access to over 100 drills, training plans from top coaches and players, weekly drill challenges, and more that focus on improving hockey sense and physical cognitive skills, starting at just $33 per month. That is a lot cheaper than an hour of ice time. The physical side of hockey gets a lot of attention, but we don't focus enough on the mental side of it. It's something we talk about on this show all the time. NHL Sense Arena provides an immersive solution for players to sharpen those skills when ice time is limited or not affordable and they want to get those extra reps in. So, for our listeners, NHL Sense Arena is offering an exclusive $50 off their annual plan. All you got to do is head over to their website, hockey.sensearena.com. Again, hockey.sensearena.com, and use our code HOCKEYNEVERSTOPS, and you'll level up your off-ice training by using NHL Sense Arena. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for supporting us and NHL Sense Arena. Enjoy this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. Hello, hockey friends and families around the world, and welcome to another edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, powered by NHL Sense Arena. I'm Elias with Christie Casciano Burns and Mike Bonelli, and our guest today is a pioneer for women's hockey in the state of Minnesota. She's a former collegiate player and current youth hockey coach, and the author of, I'm showing it on the screen, I'm Gonna Be a Hockey Star, which is available now, really, wherever you get your books, let's be honest. Again, for those of you listening, make sure you check that out. Again, it's called I'm Going to Be a Hockey Star. We'll talk about that on the show today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Amber Ross to the show. Amber, welcome to Our Kids Play Hockey.
Hi, thank you for having me.
No, thanks for being here. This has been an interview a long time coming, if you will. We've been talking for since before the holidays of last year. So I'm glad to have you here today. You know, the first question, the obvious question, but it's one we always like to ask for our audience. What drew you into coaching? How did you get into the game? Where does the origin story for Amber start?
You know, I started playing hockey late by today's standards because I was like 15. But in Minnesota standards, that was when we had like the first state tournament for girls hockey. State tournaments are huge here, for hockey in particular. And so anyway, I had the opportunity then to play in high school, and then I played at a Division III college, and I had lots and lots of fun. I even played after college until I had an injury that required surgery, a shoulder injury. And so I hung up my skates for a little bit. And then I, had some kids, and I just really missed it. And my friends still play, and I occasionally will sub for their team, but it's kind of hard with 3 kids. And so the reason I really wanted to play was one, I missed it, or coach, I should say, I missed it, and I wanted to get back into it. I also have 2 daughters, and I have 2 daughters and a son, and I just really think it's important for them to be able to see females like in that position. I never had that growing up. And that's one of the big reasons that I continue to do it, because it's very busy with 3 kids in hockey. My husband also coaches. So, yeah.
That is a busy family. I got to ask you, 15 really is, by today's standards, late to start in hockey. Did you have a skating background, and why weren't you intimidated? Because everyone around you were probably literally skating circles around you at that point.
Well, not for girls hockey, because this is when girls hockey started in Minnesota. There were certainly those girls, and I played with them, that had been playing with the boys growing up and were amazing and still actually play today. But I, I'm totally.
Yeah, so why did you jump into hockey at that age?
Yeah. Oh, and I certainly, being from Minnesota, I definitely knew how to skate. I actually did speed skating for years.
Okay.
So that part wasn't necessarily intimidating to me. Of course, I improved my skating once I started, but it was exciting. I had a twin sister. We wanted to play, and our parents were like, sure, so.
So wait, is she saying that fun, commitment, family, like all these things played into your decision to play hockey? That's amazing. This is weird, right? You didn't have to play AAA for 10 years.
No.
Yeah. No, I always like to bring that up because we discuss it a lot on the show. And again, I do appreciate your willingness to kind of somewhat qualify that. But the truth is this, is that athletes are athletes. And when you want to play, there's never a wrong time to jump in. And it's amazing what can happen when you're not 10 years old and focused on Division I hockey.
Right.
And by the way, parents, I'm talking to you because no 10-year-old is focused on Division I hockey.
It's very refreshing to hear this. Yeah.
Right. No, it's a great perspective. You mentioned it a minute ago about, being a positive force for females in the game. Let's go to this one. What challenges have you faced as a female coach in a predominantly male environment? And what difficulties do you face as a female coach in general?
Yeah. So, in Minnesota here, our teams, like I'm on some like Facebook pages and social media. Like it seems like other states do things very differently. Like Minnesota, it's just kind of taken for granted, right? We have our community team that you play for, and they're, nonprofits, and they're run by volunteers, right? So it's mostly coaches. Once we've actually started in our association, some of the upper levels, like older kids, and then like at the A and B levels have paid coaches. But, up until most of my kids, up until right now, have been coached by parents that are volunteering their time.
Right.
And so, there's always politics and whatnot. And, every season they look to see, who's interested in coaching. You might fill out like a simple form. They sometimes have interviews. There's just lots of different things. But I mean, the biggest thing that I've faced, and it's gonna sound, it's a boys club. And they're all, not all, most of them are very nice, and nobody's like necessarily intentionally excluding me, but it is very hard. Every season that I do not say that I want to be a head coach, it's been very difficult to even be included as an assistant coach. And we usually have like about maybe one or two co-head coaches, and then like maybe two assistants, sometimes more, depending on how many, parents are interested. But I've had good experiences with that and bad. I've spoken up twice. One went, I don't really know if I need to discuss it. It did not go well, and my feedback was not perceived well. And I'm, by the way, coaching my daughters. Like when my son started playing hockey, well, obviously my husband coaches and he was coaching him, but the year he started, I actually needed a second shoulder surgery. So I was like out. There was no way I was going to be helping anyway. So I just never got involved on the boys' side, but I just really wanted to be there on the girl side for them. And it's just really hard because it's from, things like they just golf together on the weekends or in the summer. Not to say that I couldn't golf with them. I don't actually golf, but it's just, nobody necessarily is actively thinking to include the female, and that's what's hard about it.
Well, now that you've done it, tell us some of the rewards that you've experienced and inspire other women to follow your lead.
Yeah. One of my favorite things about like coaching, and obviously I said girls in particular, I just love seeing their confidence be able to grow. Like they, of course we love winning and whatnot, but I love to watch them build the confidence, and then just the interactions with their teammates, right? Because that was one of my favorite things from when I played, just building the relationships with your team. And it's just been really fun and rewarding to watch them do that. And my older daughter this year, their team had quite a lot of success, and that was awesome. But also the team got along really well and they bonded. And I mean, I was like, I was feeling like I was back in high school to some extent, because it was just like, oh, these girls are so much fun. I love that they're, connecting in this way. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too, depending on, what generation you're coming out of, about where women's hockey is now. Like when you ask a 23-year-old, it's very prevalent. Like I think it's actually, I think they would be actually very surprised that there aren't women's teams. Like when I was growing up, I vaguely remember, like, my sister played hockey, but it wasn't like, it was like, oh, well, she plays hockey only because she has to get dragged to the rink. And there's a couple of girls that like to play, but they never, ever did I hear like, oh, I knew, like, for me, when I was 12, 15 years old, college hockey was very really talked about. Pro hockey wasn't talked about, but, college hockey and the next steps in high school and things like that. And it's just funny hearing, especially all the women professionals that we've interviewed and talked with, players and coaches, that, depending on what era you grew up in, how you felt about where women's hockey is now. And I think you mentioned it earlier, Amber, about, you'd like to be on the bench because you want your daughters to see somebody that's a woman coaching women, like that, and I would echo the same thing, that we'd like to see. It would be great that in girls' games, all the officials were girls, and, all the staff was girls, and that's good. But we're far away from that, right? Just because of numbers. But I think as you watch the maturation, from where you are as a 15-year-old, just picking it up for fun, maybe talk about a little bit now in Minnesota and the areas you're in. Is there a lot more intense pressure? Is the fun being taken out of it because now there is an end game for girls, right? Before there wasn't. Like a long time ago, it was just, I don't know, I play girls hockey and I'm done when I'm 17 years old. I'll never play hockey again. But now there's starting to be a little bit of an end game, right? There's starting to be a little bit of, oh, well, there's more scholarships available. There's more women's hockey teams available. Now women could actually get paid to play professionally after school. So does that change, do you think, especially in the state of hockey? Does that change how you feel when you're in these rinks about the pressure for these young girls?
I mean, my oldest daughter was on the 10U team this year. So the only benefit that I'm seeing to having the PWHL is that now, that daughter in particular loves hockey. She wants to play for the Gophers and she's going to play for the PWHL. This is what she's told me, and I just love that she can see that. I don't necessarily see that pressure with coaching these younger girls right now. It's just, they're just all still having, a lot of fun playing the game. And I mean, when you were talking, that daughter's team this season was in a tournament. It was a championship game. It was a tournament our city was hosting. So we were on our home soil, right? And our home ice rather. And it was the most exciting game because the crowd I've never seen such a huge crowd for a 10U game. And they ended up going into double overtime. Okay. And so there's a boys team that's supposed to be on the ice, but they're in their, equipment watching on the glass. It's, first 4-on-4 and then it's 3-on-3, right? I'm saying this because I just have this vision in my head. One of our top scoring players gets the puck. She goes in, dekes the goalie. We have a mom who's a photographer on the team, and she has this photo of this girl who just scored this goal. Her hands are in the air. We had two female refs. The one ref had her hand, noting the goal. And then there's these boys lining the background, screaming their heads off. It was absolutely amazing. Like that photo, when I saw it, I actually started crying. It was just this is what it is. And this is in Minnesota, at least what I've been experiencing is not necessarily the pressure, just the enjoyment and the growth of the game. And that this boys A team is, sitting there cheering for these girls. I mean, they were yelling MVP when they came off the ice. It was so much fun.
You're bringing up an interesting point. Go ahead, Mike.
Just on that though, and those boys, they think that's normal,
right?
There's no oh, well, that's lame. Or it's just like they're just as enthusiastic about that because now they're all athletes, all of them, right? And I think, and they're all, so I didn't mean to cut you off, Lee, but I think
you're good.
And we want to see that photo because I think that'd be great. I think that's awesome.
I would love. I wrote a note here to see the photo. You know,
I'll send it to you guys and credit them.
Yeah,
because she did a great job with that.
Awesome. Capturing that magical moment.
You'll
have that forever. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You know, it's funny, as we're recording this, a friend of mine just sent me this update. Just happened. It says USA Hockey will have over 100,000 females registered to play hockey for the first time ever. I just saw that. And the reason why these conversations are important too, because I want to give some perspective on this from the male perspective, is that sometimes we forget as males, you know, you don't know what you don't know, right? You can't see what you can't see. My daughter's also playing hockey, right? And interesting situations that I'm very attuned to of when she makes a team. Last year we had an experience where there were 2 girls on the team, and the homeness she felt of, oh, I'm not the only girl on the team. Adversely, on her school team, she was the only girl player on the team, and you know, she would say like, "Oh, are there any other girls playing?" The thing is like, you know, if you don't hear that in your head when they say that, and again, this isn't that boys are not making girls feel welcome. It's just that it's a different situation right now. The other cool thing about that school team is that we had a female head coach. And it was very important as an assistant coach that when my daughter would ask me something that was not in my, jurisdiction, that I was able to say, you need to ask your head coach, right? Not that I'm to empower her, not that that was the reason, but that's part of it, is that she can see a female leader in charge of that team. So unless Christie, you and Amber disagree, like I think it's important from the male side of this game that we enable, when appropriate, right? And also just remember there's perspective here. Like if you have a girl on the team and she's the only girl on the team, she's the only girl on the team. And it's not that she needs special treatment. It's just, you got to be aware of that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I see this happen a lot, right? I've coached women's teams. You got to be aware of that perspective. I'll throw that back on you. Yeah.
Sophia, for a couple of years, was the only girl on her team. And the boys treated her equally. I mean, she was a tough little hockey player, and she didn't want to be treated any differently. And it was fantastic because there was equal amount of respect. She respected them. They respected her. They protected her sometimes when some bigger kids would try to go for the ponytail. That happens. But then the following 2 years, all of a sudden, she started seeing more girls coming onto the team, which was great. She wasn't the only girl. And it was interesting because you think that would automatically separate. The girls are going to be a one-sided boys, but that didn't happen. They were still united, which was a beautiful thing to see. So I think through the years, the culture's changing. The attitude is changing. It's a more welcoming environment now for girls to play. And we just had down the road from us in Utica, the World's Women Championships played in Utica, New York. Sadly, the USA team didn't win, but the crowds were fantastic. Right. I was so excited to hear about that now people are excited to watch little girls play and women play hockey. And we're in a good position. We still have a ways to go, but the growth has been positive and so inspiring.
Well, and Amber, let me throw, this is a great conversation. Let me throw this in one of the questions. This is, what role can men and women play in supporting the diversity and inclusion of women in hockey? Because I know there's plenty of men like myself. I was like, oh, this is what we can do. But the truth is, it's not for us to kind of say it. It's free. It's your opinion is what I want to hear. Right. So how can we work together? What would you like to see happen more often in the ice rink? And Christie, obviously, this is open to you as well, to kind of continue to push this forward, because it is a new dawn right now for women's professional sports across the board. Like, we're seeing that.
Yeah. I think that specifically, like, if you're concerned about that, like as a male coach, like, I think it's really important to just work to be an ally for the female that is, or more that is in your area. Like, my experience, like, sometimes has been people saying, oh, we want more women coaching. And then they're not really doing much to, like, either support that,
right,
or encourage it
They're
among
just
the
saying
coaches that
Yeah.
are there.
Yeah.
And I also think like, I mean, it is like 99% of the guys I've coached with, because I've coached with all guys thus far, have been amazing. And I think it's just like using your voice then to support her, you know, in any way that you can. And honestly, sometimes, like in our case, because it's volunteer coaches, right? Sometimes it might mean stepping aside to give more space for her. Like it's hard for me because I'm not a naturally extroverted person. And even like, I love to be there to coach and whatnot, but I don't think my strengths lie in the head coach, rousing locker room speech, you know, like and it pains me because I want to be able to do that for the girls, but I'm also like, that's also not who I am. I did have an opportunity this spring. My youngest daughter was on a just little tournament team for the weekend. And I coached. This was the first time I've ever coached with another female. And she was so amazing. It was so much fun coaching with her. She was so knowledgeable, and just the communication just felt so natural, even though I just met her, you know? So it was awesome. And I would love to be able to do that again.
I think you have to be true to yourself. And I bet you're a great coach, just who you are.
Yeah.
I don't think you want to become someone else, because that's not natural to you. And I think,
Right.
and that's an important lesson for the kids to learn too, that you don't have to be that outgoing personality. You can be a quiet, powerful coach too. So
Yeah.
I think,
Thank you.
no. Also, but I think and this is just a thought that just kind of popped into my head. There are so many women now graduating from college hockey teams. There's huge crops of women who have all this college experience. And I look at my daughter, for example, she's focused on, getting her career set. But I betcha if local organizations reached out to her or other college kids, either in the summer when they're home from break, and recruited them to help coach on the weekends, I bet they jump at that opportunity. And I think that's overlooked right now. And I think
Yes.
a lot of the women who graduate from college aren't thinking about that because they're so, focused on other things, getting a job. But I bet you if these organizations reached out to these young women, they would be more than willing to help out. Maybe they couldn't do it full time, but even just to be a presence on the ice, maybe do a couple of skills with the kids. So there's a lot of opportunity out there that can help grow the game.
Yeah, and our association did that with some of the older levels. And the other thing that I think our association does a really good job with is we partner with the high school. So like the younger girls, they assign them to a certain game, and they get to go out there. First of all, they get to sit on the bench while the team is warming up, and then they get to go in the locker room, before the game. And then they have them come out on the ice and they skate up with the player that is being, announced the starting lineup. They'll have like two girls paired with one of them. And it's just awesome. And even when my older daughter's team this year, they won a couple of tournaments, and they honored their team at the high school game. So like we could go and, the girls were there and, this team won, this tournament. And that's,
yeah, that's important.
Those high school girls, like it's awesome.
Yeah, I love that idea.
Yeah, I think it's the same way too for men, men coaches and female coaches. I mean, it's basically the same. It is trying to get them is so hard because a lot of the organizations don't provide the support that's needed for those young coaches to jump in. Like, I think because especially good or bad, they're the most, they're removed, and they're not removed so far from playing, right? So they remember like, oh my God, yeah, those parents are nuts, or that was a crazy experience, or
That's so true.
That was really intense, or oh my, you're asking me to give up 28 weekends of my life, for a bunch of kids I don't know. Yeah. So I think there is a lot of mentoring and a lot of support and a lot of ways we can, as organizations, help young, females and males to get into coaching, so that they can pass on that knowledge and have that mentorship to our kids, because it's great. It's the best, right? I mean, when my kids have a young guy or girl coaching them on the ice, that's maybe in like your early 20s, it's like gold. I mean, they love it, and
Yeah.
it's so much better. Like the
Mhm.
experience is fun, and I see the kids have fun. The guy, I call them kids, but the coaches, the people that are coaching
Yeah.
these young kids, they're not jaded yet. They're not, they're not bitter. They're not
Right.
like their time is not like, oh my God, I have enough time. I don't have time to do all
Yeah.
this. Like, so I think we just have to, all acknowledge that we have to do a better job as organizations to make sure
Yeah.
we're supporting those groups so they
I
can
agree.
continue to make it easy for them, right?
Little gold mines out there. We're not harvesting that. There's
Yeah.
a lot of opportunity out there.
Christy, I was just going to jump on that. For all the organizational leaders listen to this show, you should keep a tab of your kids after they're done with your team in youth hockey and call them 4 or 5 years later. Because it's not going to be all of them, but I would think it's a safe bet that most post collegiate hockey players, even post high school players, will want to help.
I agree.
There's something about giving back. Like I remember when I got done playing competitively, first thing I wanted to do was get back in the game with coaching. I didn't want to stray away. And that, not that there's any issues with parent volunteers. God bless every one of you, because we would not be able to run our organizations without you. But yet there is something about having a 24, 25-year-old, I was going to say kid, but young adult out there that has a passion for the game. And we all know kids love a different voice in the locker room, especially at the younger ages, right? Now, I have not quite come to terms yet that kids think I'm old. I'm slowly starting to understand that when they look at me, I'm like, why are you so scared? I'm like, oh, I have a beard and no hair. I'm a dad to you. So I think it's important. And this is just broader, like understanding the situation you're in. And, Amber, again, turning that back to you, we talked about it a little bit of the coaching perspective, but as a woman, can you talk to me about the power for a young girl to see a woman leader on the bench, on the ice? Like, what is the perspective for the 10-year-old girl? Because I think we need to explore that a little bit to give full understanding to the audience.
Yeah, I mean, I constantly feel like if you can see it, you can be it and you can believe it, right? I also, like my background, I work in children's publishing, and it's just very important for us in our books to get a diverse range of kids that we see, right? And this then plays out in life, right? Like it's not just the dads that are coaching or the men, just to see her, in a position of leadership, speaking up, talking with the men, like on, equal terms, which I know it sounds silly, but it's just, I never saw that growing up.
It doesn't sound silly. I mean, I appreciate you saying that, but you don't know what you don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So that's not silly. That's reality, right? We don't see that sometimes. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. And I think it's just a great role model for the girls, right? I mean, I remember, like you were speaking about younger coaches. Like I remember I played lots of sports, but in middle school I played volleyball, and we had a young coach that I still remember her. I mean, she was great, but we just thought she was so cool. She was young, and she, related to us and knew all that. And so I don't know. Like the benefits, like many.
Yeah, no. And look,
You're absolutely right.
I'll say this too, just to kind of continue the perspective that, the generation right before me grew up with the 1980 Miracle team. And look, I love that team. I study that team. I revere that team. But what's funny is, and I've talked about this once or twice on the show before, then I often wonder what would happen if the 98 Olympics didn't happen. In the sense of that was the first women's Olympic games in ice hockey. The USA won. The men's team, I remember, was struggling heavily that year. So all of our attention went to Cammy Granado and the Team USA women's hockey team. And they were heroes to me, right? And I was at a very impressionable age. And again, I wonder what would have happened if I didn't see that or experience that. Like, how would I view women's hockey? So you have these inflection points. Again, I'm speaking as a male. For a woman, I can only imagine what that experience would have been like, having never seen that before. But these inflection points where you said it, if you see it, you can become it. I look at my daughter, and Christy, you can comment on this for Sophia too. It's like my daughter is now growing up, and this is the first time this has ever been true in the last 5 years, that professional hockey is a very realistic opportunity if she wants to pursue it. Right. I mean, even for Sophia, Christie, it's like, I'm sure she knew college was there and maybe pro, but the perspective changes because of these inflection points. So when my daughter sees, 18,000 people going to watch women in Montreal or Minnesota, right, the perspective is suddenly changed. The ceiling is broken and it's a new reality. And I think we all play a role in that, in supporting that, and not having that off the cuff, like, oh, well, it's a gimmick. It's just only happening because people are pushing an agenda. They're pushing it. It's like, no one's pushing an agenda. This is awesome, right? This is good for the game, period. Am I off at anything I'm saying right now?
No, you're 100% right. And I shared this with you before. I talked to a few women who are professional coaches now, and it's bittersweet to them because they now look back and wonder, would the 10-year-old me have been able to dream bigger than where I am now and aspire to becoming a professional hockey player like so many women can do now? So it's bittersweet to them because they couldn't dream that big. There were limitations. They could only dream about going to college, maybe if they were good enough, make an Olympic hockey team, and that's it. And then coach. But now there's this professional hockey league for women, and it's so much more exciting for the little girls of today.
You know what's funny, guys? I was just thinking about this. All the kind of jesting that we do about, your 10-year-old going D1 or professionally, statistically speaking, every girl playing has a way higher chance of that than every boy playing by
That's very true.
miles. Yes. You know what I mean? So I'm very much joking, but where are the parents saying my daughter's going professional D1? We got to get her on the AAA team.
Well, they're there. They're there. They're just they're there now.
Yeah, I believe
there's no doubt they're there now, and I think the intensity. But I think it's like Amber was saying it earlier, just about seeing players on the ice and the way children and you the real question is interviewing those 5 and 6 and 7 year olds. And I could guarantee you this, and I know this for a fact, like if my sons were on the ice at 5 and 6 and 7 with a female coach or a male coach, as long as they had energy and they smiled and they had fun, I don't think they would ever mention that it was a woman coach or a male coach. I mean, it just wouldn't happen. I mean, so I think it all depends on, it's the same thing, right? It's what you're saying as a parent in the car, what you're saying going into that, like, oh, okay, you could take a little bit from her, but she really doesn't know what she's talking about. She only played at Minnesota State, whatever. So just don't listen to her. So I think it's just like, but I think it's almost like it's just a matter of how you present it as a parent too, about what the power of that coach can be, female, male, whatever, ethnic background, doesn't matter. If they can coach and they can smile and your kids are happy, I think that's the number one thing. And I think, and we're getting, and again, hockey, in my opinion, is behind on all of this. It's no doubt behind on diversity. It's behind in inclusion. It's behind on the sexes. But from where I sit, it's getting better and better, and there's more work being done to fix it. So that's a good thing. And I think that's, but I think it's, to everybody's point here talking, it's just a matter of like, it's our job as administrators and leaders and coaches to keep fostering that environment and then showing it that you can, we're going to show you this is what's possible and you could be this person, but we need to be the ones saying, I need to recruit that kid, that player to come work with me, like aggressively. Like I need to go out and do that purposefully so that it can happen, not just wait for it to happen.
Yeah.
And I even go a step further with my kids. I mean, I call it out. Like, I mean, I think, for a boy that sees a female coach on the ice, it's probably like, oh yeah, that's normal. I do think, so many of the little ones would always tell me I was their favorite coach, and I think it was more that I was a female, but I'm constantly calling that stuff out for them so they are aware as they navigate their life. I mean, not to bring it to basketball, but we were watching Caitlin Clark and her team, and I could not believe, I was like, look at this. We've got, these women's like college basketball teams. We've got female coaches. Look at refs, they're females. The commentators are all female. I've literally never seen that before. It's like, kids, I don't think you understand that this is like a big deal. And this is like what we need. Like for years, it was all men and nobody seemed to comment. So let's comment on this now. I don't know. Like,
no, I listen, I think this all comes to normalizing that while there is women's and men's basketball, it's all basketball. There is women and men's hockey, but it's all hockey. And to me, that's the path where the goal is that, you know, I understand why they have separated it, but the idea is no, women's hockey is hockey to me. Like I want to watch it because it's hockey, right?
Right.
And moving towards that. Listen, we only have a couple minutes left, Amber. I wanted to bring this up. You talked about Before Dreams. You wrote this great book. I've read it to my children. I'm going to be a hockey star again. It's available everywhere for those of you who want to get it. Walk us through, you know, again, I know you're in publishing. Why did you create this? What's the message? And again, I loved reading this with both of my kids. It was a really wonderful book.
So the book is basically about a little boy who's stepping out onto the ice for the first time and dreaming of being a hockey star. It actually is, the purpose of the book was twofold. One, really just trying to get kids who really are stepping onto the ice for the first time to understand what like might be entailed in a practice. It's like a little intimidating, right? Especially if you haven't skated before. So there's, you know, some things in the beginning about, you know, you're going to fall. It's okay. You just get back up. But really the thread of the story is him dreaming of what he's going to do when he's a hockey star. And it's just, I mean, in that context, I feel like anyone can appreciate the book, whether you're a hockey player or not. It's just dreaming your biggest dream. And that's all I would ever hope for my kids or any kids, just to dream big.
Yeah, I think you accomplished it. You know, I always say to hockey parents, because look, you have parents that think kids are going all the way. You have parents kind of that don't care, which is also fine. And then you have parents that kind of openly say, oh, you're never going to make it. And I always cringe when I hear that, because your kid has a right to dream. They have a right to dream. Again, you don't have to agree with their dream, but you have to support the right to dream. And I think when you stunt that, you're holding them back. You can be realistic with them about the effort it takes, the work it takes, that nothing's guaranteed, but don't take away their will to dream. That's why I love the title. I'm going to be a hockey star, right? It's beautiful. Yeah. We're just about up on time. Christie, Mike, any other questions before we jump out of here?
Oh, Amber, you're such a joy to talk to.
Thank you.
And I think you're very inspirational too. So if women are kind of on the fence about jumping in and coaching, take Amber's lead and do it.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, and listen, more hockey books in the libraries are better for everyone. So more, I love
true.
it. And I think we need more stories surrounding hockey players and accomplishing their dreams. And I think it's it's like Christie and Lee's books. It's always fun to open up these hockey centric subjects and be able to talk to them, and they're more fun for a parent that's a hockey fan. So it's all good.
I agree. Yeah.
Christie and I are working on a book called Monday Morning Mike.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. The Monday Morning Mike book, how to become happy on a Monday as a coach, and then other books too, right?
That's more of a motivational book.
It's an audio book only, actually, Mike.
That'll be a sitcom too.
It's gonna be like Seinfeld. I showed up and the game was on. That's gonna do it for this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey, powered by NHL Sensorina. Amber, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Again, you can see all of our episodes or listen to them at ourkidsplayhockey.com. But for Amber Ross, Christie Casciano Burns, and Mike Bonelli, I'm Lee Elias, and we're going to see you on the next edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Have a great week, everybody.